everyone, and welcome back to our Ellipse Unsealed podcast. Today we have here with us Josh Knox. Hi, Josh.
Hey guys, thanks
Hey
for
Josh,
having
how
me.
are you, man?
Doing really good.
Good. Josh, do you kind of want to start us off with telling us a little bit about yourself and how you got into dynamics and all that goes into it?
Sure. I mean, yeah, my dynamics journey. I guess where does it really start? Right? Where does any story start? Like I was
Right.
born. I grew up in California. I went to school in Virginia, and then I graduated. And my first job was in logistics. We did logistics for big windmill projects, which was really exciting. It was like a little kid fantasy because you're always around cranes and
Yeah,
the big tower sections and how do you move a windmill blade like
Bob
across
the
state
Builder.
lines and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I got to run around with like a clipboard and a hard hat and tell people like, hey, move your truck. So that was like my first professional job. And in a way, we were working for a small company, and Excel ran everything, right? We had all these big Excel checklists, and we'd get bills of lading and things like that. So I was around just sort of business processes in a small company, and then windmill logistics didn't work out great, and that company ultimately closed up shop. But then my next job was with a friend of mine. We were doing digital advertising. We found a unique way to sell different banner ads and just help companies with online marketing. And so we were running that. It was just him and me, and we were figuring out how to do this. And how do you manage AR? How do you manage how do you make sure you pay your vendors? These are all things that we didn't really have experience with. We didn't have a system for it. So I just built a bunch of complex Excel spreadsheets that sort of tracked everything that we were spending and tracked everything that we were collecting. And I showed this to a buddy of mine, a friend from college, and he says, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing all this in Excel? I said, oh, well, what we're doing is so complex. There's no system for this. It has to be in Excel. And he goes, no, like I work with this system called AX 2012, and these big robust systems help you do this. And obviously we were a small company. AX wouldn't have been a fit for that. But then at the end of this conversation, my friend says, you should really just like do stuff for AX, like this online marketing thing. Like I see it doesn't give you joy. I think you just enjoy the challenges of this more. And he got me a job, or he got me an interview with his company, and that company wound up hiring me. That was sort of how I got into AX, simply because my friend was doing it, and he said, hey, like, I think you have the aptitude for this and you'd like this. And the funny thing about sort of that path into consulting, that would not have been the route that I would have planned if I said, what's AX is this ideal career. I would have liked to go like college straight to AX. But working with these really small companies, you get to sort of wear a lot of hats and see a lot of things. And really, you're just designing business processes as you have business challenges. How do we do this? We need to make sure these people get paid, but we need to sure we get the money first. And what does that mean, et cetera? So it's like I was doing all of this business process modeling, even though I'd never heard the term business process modeling. And so I think that sort of gathering that range, or having a lot of different experiences before becoming a consultant, really helped me to be, I think, more sensitive, or have sort of both the ability to have a higher level sense and then a really in the weeds sense of what are the problems that businesses challenges, and the problems that businesses have, and what are the problems that people in businesses deal with on a day-to-day basis, and then how does technologies change that. So that's how I got into AX. So that was in 2015, I think. It was called AX 2012 then.
Yep.
Our first implementation was an on-premises implementation. I guess all the AX 2012 ones were. And then after that first implementation, it was really, everything started going to the cloud, right? And AX 2012 became Dynamics 365 for finance and operations. Just a beautiful, beautiful marketing name right there. Which is being,
it's not even that anymore.
Yeah. What is the official name right now? Can either of you tell me?
You ask people at Microsoft, they don't know. I definitely hear a lot of F&O. I mean FSCM now.
FSCM.
FSCM. They now it depends. Now they're trying to have you identify it by its modules, like its individual, like finance or the individual like apps, if you want to call them that, right? So I'm not sure how well that's going to catch on. Everybody I know, I mean, now you have levels, right? Like you and I started at a time when it was AX, so I started at a time when it was Exapta. So
Yeah, you speak Dutch.
There's still people I keep in touch with at that first point that still is like, man, I really miss Exapta. It's like, the AX people, and then if you got there in the middle, you wouldn't even know what to call it because it was Rainier and AX7, and there's like it was really going through this transition period.
But is it like how we only love the music that was popular when we were teens or whatever? And
it's all
always stays with us. Yep. So now, to me, it's always AX 2012, and that's what to you, it was always Exapta, and always will be. So, anyways, that's how I got sort of into this industry, and I was just really fortunate, right? That first job that I had a really great mentor. His name was Joel Lichty, and he was a Microsoft MVP. He had a blog. He just loved sort of writing about these business problems and how do you use this technology to solve those different business problems. And he was just really good at always giving me, like, he'd give me some, go do this thing, and I'd maybe have 90% of what I needed to go do that thing, and and whether this was I feel like it was intentional. He was just, really gifted at this, but it'd always be like, okay, so I'm 90% there. Now, how do I close this 10%? And eventually I either figure it out or I give it up and ask him. And then he'd send, this was back right before Teams. We were using like Skype, I think. And he'd send like a 1-sentence response to something. I'd be like, oh, that's the missing piece. Right. And then I'd, go on my way, we've solved this thing. Okay. But so, he was really just good at giving me different small tasks to do on the big implementation project that we were working on that would always be stretching me and always sort of helping me learn new parts of the system as I was also, completing design documents or helping, move the project along. So it was really great, both sort of him, helping me find the pieces of work that were going to get me to sort of this next level in understanding the application, but also just as a model of sort of what he was doing, both in having a blog and sort of being a part of this larger community. So that was a really interesting piece of, like when I was in logistics, like our business ran on trade secrets, right? The success of our business was because we had relationships with these vendors, and it was important that you didn't know who our vendors were, right? And in digital marketing, it was sort of the same way. We had this very special way of buying advertising, and so you had to come to us to get this special thing.
Yeah.
Suddenly in consulting, it wasn't like that anymore. I was like, oh, I don't know how this part of the application works. Oh, here's some stranger on the internet who in his own free time has come out and said, hey, look, here's a thing I figured out. World, please enjoy this new free thing.
Yeah.
And it was just the complete paradigm shift of moving from these closed cultures to these really open cultures, and that the community being more than I work at my company and you work at your company, and we are sort of in this battle for these scarce resources. But it was really about like, here, we've learned these things, and oh wow, you've learned these things, and now together, we can all help our customers, work within this application in a lot better, more efficient way.
Yeah.
You don't have to hit your head against the wall as many times as you used to. So that was just sort of shocking to me. It was just a new paradigm. And I enjoyed that. It was, I think of those blogs that I was using, right? So I was working a lot in the projects module at the time, and Ludwig was doing, it felt like anything I had a question on, I would find my way at Ludwig's blog. I'm like, oh, here's the answers, or someone else. And that was really, Joel himself was blogging, so that was inspiring to me.
Yeah.
And so I think it was in 2019 that I started a blog, and I said, oh, like this seems like a good thing. Like I just sort of want to be a part of this community. And then I think having a blog was also really helpful the way that I saw it, right? I was still young in the industry. And when you're a consultant, you go from customer to customer to customer. And each time you go to a new customer, you sort of have to prove yourself. You have to gain trust. I guess you have to earn trust, probably is the right way to say that. But a customer says, oh, like, what do you know about our industry? And sometimes the answer is, I don't know a lot, right? I know how AX or Dynamics or whatever the system you're using, I know how that works. And I know that most businesses have general problems like, how do we receive cash? How do we pay our vendors? How do we, analyze our profit, right? How do we recognize revenue? These are all sort of normal business problems. And so, and everyone says, oh, well, our company is very specific. If you don't know, we don't need someone who knows the application. We need someone who knows our business and the application, and, is also a unicorn. That perfect match doesn't always exist. But anyways, I found that at the beginning of any project, you're spending a lot of time really trying to prove yourself and to demonstrate to your customer that you do know what you're doing, and that they should trust you, the right word. There needs to be a trusting relationship for the implementation to work. And anyways, I found that having a blog really sort of elevates you as a consultant, and you seem more professional. People realize that you are passionate about this thing, that you are knowledgeable about this thing, that you are connected to the wider community. And I found that having a blog sort of tears down those barriers a lot earlier. A personal blog that sort of represents you is just really powerful in saying, right, this is who I am and this is what I'm about. And it helps if that blog has some personal style, if you write in an engaging way, right? ERP, right? These business systems can be a bit dry, and so I like to write blog posts that have jokes that I find amusing, and then
I love it. Yeah, at least amuse yourself at the end of the day, right?
The 5 or 7 people that also read your blog post will also say, "Oh, that was mediocre at best." No.
when I got to Ellipse, I also started doing a lot of blogging. I'd done some personal, like, I was on the end user side, but I wanted to contribute to the community in the same way. I was doing a lot of projects and felt like I had something to say, and so I started blogging in a variety of ways, very personal, very business oriented, and but yeah, I totally with you on, I try to take this dry subject, like whatever it is about D365, and give it some spice. If you go back and look at some of my blogs, I've probably taken it too far. Like, I'm pretty sure our marketing department should have reined me back a little bit. They let some stuff slide. But again, it shows a personality. It does, it's just, you can tell, especially in today's age, that it isn't just AI generated, that somebody's back there. If you know the person, wow, okay, this definitely was written by Bobby, or this was written by Josh, or this was written by Savannah. Who's behind the curtain there. I'm going to step back real quickly. Just wanted to make a comment on, if you're doing consultancy, there's an interesting line that I found, because I went from end user, where I was, started, like you, just kind of fell into AX. Like, the company I was with decided to install it, and it just kind of stayed with me. It became, I got ingrained, and then it's like, this is just a part of me now. I like the software. At the time, I was functional and developer, so I could do, some fun developing and some, and business analysis and all that. But the difference in doing that for a company and then taking that and doing it as a consultant takes a bit of a leap of faith, because you get engaged with the company, and then you have to strip away and move to the next company, a different culture, a different system, just a whole, so it's kind of starting over and building from scratch. How hard was that for you? Because it was definitely a challenge when I first jumped over into the consultant side.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I probably as a very brand new consultant, I didn't realize that would be the case, right? Because these implementations projects are are long, right? Or they're getting shorter, of course, but they're
Yep.
6 months or a year. And yeah, a big part of that is developing relationships, right? Understanding how to work well with other people. And so there's a lot to success as a consultant that's beyond just these functional skills, but there really are relational skills, understanding how things work interpersonally, both on the consulting side, so I say like within your own company, and at the customer side or the client side,
Yeah.
how things work over there. And so you're sort of, as a consultant, you're always sort of blending these different cultures, and you have to sort of be a chameleon at times, and find ways to blend in. And the same leadership style isn't going to work across all the same industry, or across different industries rather.
Brings in another soft skill development need when you're moving. Is like you said, you could be great your functional piece or your development piece, but when you are an engaged consultant, having that soft skills of people and and relationship building make a huge difference in your ability to be successful in that consultant role, for sure. And I'm stepping back a little further now. Where in Virginia did you go to school?
I went to school at George Mason University. So that's in Fairfax, Virginia, right outside of the DC area.
I grew up in Falls Church, Virginia. So I went to George Mason High School, but had a number of friends went to George Mason University, and I hung out a lot on the campus there. Matter of fact, I started like my actual workout journey, like before the first, kind of first gym experience was at George Mason's field house. A friend of mine, he's like, "Hey, I'm going to work out. You want to come with me?" Like, yeah, sure. And so it turned into a lifelong passion now. So yeah, it was, started there at the field house there.
Yeah, I love that field house. I wonder if it's still there. The campus has changed so much.
Yeah, campus definitely changed a lot, but yeah, it'd be interesting to know. Yeah, we don't much talk about it anymore, but yeah. And everybody's because of the expense to live around there, everybody's moved away, so nobody lives in that area anymore. Yeah, so I rarely go back to that particular place.
Yeah, I went there to study economics. I loved economics in high school, and that was a first passion, I guess, before ERP. And so
was that a big economic school? Because my best friend was an econ major. He was like he was going to get into foreign politics, but just happened to get into IT at the time when it was really like when development, like just major development was really coming about. Like, this would have been, he would have graduated in like 1990, 91. And just happened to get a job at Ross Perot's company because they were recruiting. And he's like, wow, this is a lot of money. I should do this instead. And never used his econ degree.
Yeah, that's a common story. But Mason's economics department is fantastic. It sort of specializes in sort of Austrian economics, or more sort of libertarian economics than a lot of other economics departments. So it's unique. But I love it. Shout out to GMU Econ. Made me who I am.
Go Patriots.
Where were we? Jumping back.
We were talking about consulting and how the people skills. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you everyone for coming along our joyride into Northern Virginia culture. I mean, people skills are huge. And like you said, right, you move to project, so there's good and bad to that, right? If you're in a bad project, eventually you will be on, I guess I shouldn't say a good project, but you'll be on a different project.
Yeah.
And so there are work cycles to consulting, which I think is, some people like that. I think some people thrive in that. And like you were saying, Bobby, right, when you're on the end user, you really get to dig in deep, and you have deep relationships across the whole organization, and you have a good sense of what makes that the way that it is. So those are differences. So I guess continuing on that path, right? So I was a functional consultant, and then after functionally consulting for a while, I started doing doing blogging. And I guess what this leads to is that last year I was awarded the Microsoft MVP award for business applications.
That's awesome, man.
Who was awarded it, and that was really exciting, right? It felt like a a real professional realization, right? I guess not of like what I had done necessarily in the last 12 months, but this 5-year journey. And it's
Right.
really, and so it's amazing. This last March, I got to go to the MVP summit and meet the other MVPs, and it's like you're meeting these old friends, even though you've never met them in person. You're like, oh, like
Yeah.
I mean, it's niche celebrity, right? You get to go and
Right.
say, oh, like I've been following you forever, and thank you for helping me on that one little thing related to fixed assets or whatever the thing might be.
It's
So
just a
that was,
large group of everybody you just described, like people who want to give back to the community. This is why they're awarded this. A lot of it goes into the what you're giving back in whatever particular discipline you're awarded the MVP, whether it's Biz Apps or Azure or wherever that journey is. A lot of it's built around this idea that you've given a lot of your time and effort to educating and bringing the community along with you.
yeah. So yeah, that's a really neat thing. And then I guess the thing to plug from there, right, is I wrote this book called Letters to a Young ERP Consultant. Something that happened, I think 2 years ago. I was thinking about my journey, right, from sort of fumbling around at small companies to becoming an AX consultant to right just having really strong mentorship at the beginning of my career. And I was thinking, well, like not everybody has that, right? I mean, people get hired straight out of college, which means that they don't have a lot of, a broad base of business background, let's say, right? Or people get, hired into companies that, have perhaps sold slightly more than they had capacity to deliver. And so they're just sort of thrown into the mix, and they don't have, real mentorship or real strong guidance, or maybe the people who are supposed to be mentoring them aren't fantastic at mentorship, because that's also a skill that you have to learn and develop. And so I was trying to think, what advice would I give to somebody who was just starting in this industry, and how do you find a space for yourself? And so I just started writing kind of little 3-paragraph essays or whatever, and posting them on LinkedIn. And I really got surprised at the traction around those, right? It was, a lot of people were commenting and saying, yes, like I wish I had this, or yes, these are the things that I wish I had known at the beginning. And it was really neat to me to see just that it became a community sharing sort of place, right? I'll give you these long comment threads of, yes, this is also helpful, and these things were helpful. And so I got inspired, and I said, oh, I should put this together into a book, because a book makes it feel real, right? You can have,
Yeah.
I have it, the all the content is there on my blog. I have a little tab of resources that sort of has that information, but it's neat to have it in a real book. And it's, I guess when it's a real book, then I've had so much fun just giving it to people. That's been the funnest thing, is just,
Yeah.
some new LinkedIn connection says, hey, what do I need? And I said, oh, what's your address? Let me send you a book. That's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. And was it a long process to get the book published?
Well, the miracle of the internet is that it's actually very easy to publish a book now. I mean, Amazon has a product called Kindle Direct Publishing. And if you have a PDF, you can basically load your PDF there and get it, you press a button and ta-da, it's published, right? And
Wow.
they will print you a book, and right, it has there's an ISBN on the.
Yeah, I was saying it's got the whole real ISBN number and everything.
It's a whole thing.
Yeah, it's a real boy.
It's a real, yeah. But there's because it's just like the blog, right? It's a labor of love, and so it's not about just making content. I don't just publish articles because I'm like, oh, I need to publish more articles. I publish articles because I'm inspired by something. I've just learned a new thing, and I say, oh, I want to share this. Or, I mean, especially with the blog, it's like, I just learned a new thing. I better write this down so that it's saved in this place that I can then refer to it later. And so with the book, you're right, there's so much little formatting around like, oh, I want all the pages to start on, or all the new chapters to start on the right page and not the left page. And so how do I do all these little tweaks? And I've learned so many new things. So the whole book, right, I guess it started as some of these things that I put on LinkedIn, and then I expanded and edited all of them. But what took the most time, I think, was just that finessing to get things just the way that I wanted them to be.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. It's cool to have something tangible, like you said, to actually give to people and things like that. Can you get it on the Kindle store, or is it just paperback form?
Well, that's a great question. I think both versions are there.
Yeah, I'll have to check it out.
I'm a terrible marketer if I say I don't know. Like, yeah, because there's like another button I think that I have to press to make it available, like on the Kindle version. But like Kindle Direct Publishing sort of does both of those things at once.
Yeah, cool. Have you always been into writing before? Like, you're an econ major and now you're into writing all these blogs and books. Has that always been like a passion of yours, or something you kind of got into later after college and stuff?
I've always liked writing. I think back to like in high school, I'd write like letters to the editor, like the high school paper. I wasn't like on the newspaper staff, but I guess, yeah, I've liked writing a lot. So was it about 3 years ago now, there's an online class. It's called Rite of Passage, which is a really clever turn of phrase. And it's a 5-week class run by an online author named David Perel. Really about refining writing and trying to think more seriously about writing. And so I guess, yeah, the story behind that is 2 years ago. My wife and I we wanted to take a break my wife is from Brazil. I guess I should give that as background. And we've been married for 7 years now. But there was COVID, and for other reasons, we hadn't been able to go back to Brazil for a long time to see her family. So I'd never met her family that was all in Brazil. And so we started planning this trip to Brazil and said, okay, let's just take a break, from work, from everything, and just go to Brazil. And we said, if we're going to go, like, flights are a fixed cost. Here's my economics. And I said, but you could amortize that fixed cost if you spend just a long time in Brazil. And so we said, okay, let's go for 6 months. And I said, oh, that's great. So we went to Brazil in the start of 2022 with sort of no agenda. We said, we're going to go there. We're going to just be around her family and live in Brazil. And I didn't have any, just, a clean break. I didn't have any work commitments. And in that first month, I took this rite of passage class to learn how to learn about writing online, and it was just, yeah, a lot of different frameworks for thinking about how to write and writing online. So I did that, and I wrote some essays from that. One of the essays that I wrote in that class was about, like, how do you even describe being an ERP consultant, right? This is like the hardest thing that I've struggled with. I put as an essay in the appendix of my book, because it's like, when I meet somebody new and they're like, oh, what do you do? And I say, I'm an ERP consultant. They say, well, what's ERP? And then you have to explain that. Well, what exactly do you do? And they go, oh, okay, cool. So you work for Microsoft. And it's like, no, that's not what I mean, like, I always feel like I either provide too much or too little information, right? So when everyone asks my wife, she says, oh, he's a consultant. And everyone goes, oh, okay, he's a consultant. like that
something
means anything,
easy to digest, right?
Ask my kids, they'll say, oh, daddy has phone calls.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's also correct. So that was an essay that I wrote during that rite of passage class. And then from Rite of Passage, I started a newsletter. So I have a weekly newsletter. It's not ERP related at all. It's called Just Jossing, but it's about kind of just the interesting essays that I read or things that I think. And it's really evolved into the thing that I've wanted to write about the most ever since my kids were born, which is my kids. So kind of every week is like just a picture of my kids and the things that we did that week. And then also I'm trying to think about like life lessons. My kids are 2 and 4, right? We're not right. There'll be a lot more time for a lot of deeper life lessons, but I'm trying to write down the deep thoughts that I have right now. That way, in 10 years, my kids can go back and see what Daddy was thinking in that time frame.
Yeah, it's a great like a historical piece of work that they can go back and look at. It's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's been a really fun writing project.
Yeah, maybe turn that into a book.
Yeah. Click another button, right?
Yeah.
Click, 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 click. Yeah.
Clack, click, clack. Very cool.
So you mentioned Joel, and just I mean, I saw him kind of evolve his business online. I've known Joel in the community for a while. You and I met. I think I first met you in the pandemic. So I know you've been in the community, but I don't know if we've met before. But just doing everything online, got hooked up with some folks in England, and then I want to say the first time I met you was in like an underground virtual meeting that was happening like every Thursday, the Bespoke Badger, maybe
at the Badger. I think
the Badger.
I think we did meet at the
what
Badger one time.
What an interesting thing that was.
I haven't been to the Badger in a long time. Is it?
I went the one time and I never made it back. Not that I was turned off or anything, but it was such an experience. So he was like, "Hey, you got to come to the Badger." I just done this online hackathon with some folks from England. And it was like a day-long project where people were given a concept in Power Platform, and they had to, by the end of the day, come up with some solutions around the different problems. And they were in teams, and it was all virtual in these rooms, and you would poke in and ask them what they were doing. And it was really fun. And the guys that were running it were hilarious. And they're like, "Oh, we have this thing. It's every I think it was like every Thursday night. It's in England. So it was an interesting time for me too. Like I think it was like 2 in the afternoon or something. Yeah. And then they're in full cocktail mode and I'm in 2 in the afternoon mode. But to get in, the very first thing to get in, they asked you a question. It was like a secret society. It was like, duck, duck, duck. And it's like, okay, what celebrity would you punch in the face and why? So I had to come up with on the fly this answer, and justify my reasoning as to why I would punch Tom Cruise in the face, because that's the celebrity I chose. So it was interesting. Yeah. And I think Josh happened to be on that same night where it was just kind of talking and, BSing, but fun way to connect.
Chance encounter. Yeah. But again, like community, right? Those are just other people that are active in that Microsoft community. Then and now, Bobby, it's kind of, this is like a celebrity encounter for me too, right? I'm used to seeing, I think the first time I saw you, I probably didn't meet you, but you were at the, on the big stage at Community Summit. I was like, oh, that's the Bobby Small, right?
I've embarrassed myself a lot on that stage.
Your notes, right?
I did 2 or 3 years of Jimmy Fallon's thank you notes as the main stage attraction. Yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it. It was a great time.
Going back to Joel, right? So I've known Joel since the beginning of my consulting career, and we've watched the sort of both of us our career evolutions, and in I guess it was in the beginning of 2022, Joel and Eric Frisk started Co-Optimize. They sort of wanted to create just experiment with a new model of consulting, right? So the model is a cooperative. So everybody that's at Co-Optimize is I want to use the right terms. We are officially members, and then you are a worker member, and then you sort of through a process of being with the company for a period of time, you grow to be sort of a worker owner. But essentially, it's just trying to rethink what a consulting company looks like, and just experiment with a new model. And it has its own incentives, and kind of everybody works for the cooperative, and then quarterly we have profit sharing. Everyone is completely aware of what the P&L of our company looks like. I say our company because it was in the middle of last year, I joined Co-Optimize. And so we at Co-Optimize, I can now use the royal we because we are all members, right? So Co-Optimize, we specialize in really business intelligence and, kind of everything data, but just, data warehouses and using Power BI. And all of us have a background in Dynamics 365 or finance and operations.
Yeah.
Various different types of backgrounds, both as consultants. Some people have been end users, but that sort of informs the way that we look and think about data. And so I guess we are specialized data consultants, not just related to F&O, but I would say that is a strength of what we do, because we just know from, again, experience, right? Just all that time working with all these different tables and understanding how these things relate and understanding common things that can happen along the way of using F&O.
Yeah, that's an awesome concept for sure. Like, it's open source mentality you talked about. Again, it kind of lends into the idea that, hey, we're here to try to lift all people, and that's just another extension of that.
Yeah. And so it's just, I think about the blog and the book as kind of experiments, right? That would be the main thing I would say to any consultant coming up, is just try new things, right? Experiment. Maybe you write a blog and maybe you find you don't like writing. That's fine. A blog doesn't have to be for you, but maybe I don't want to just say, oh, make a podcast, but maybe that is the thing that animates and excites you. Yeah, try it. I've done both. I blog. I've tried YouTube videos. I've done just posts on LinkedIn. But you can try other things, right? They're new tool. Maybe you've never worked with Power BI. Maybe look at Microsoft Learn. There's always other products and things to learn, and so it's just kind of like keep your eyes open for skills that you can acquire, or ways that you can, and then ways that you can sort of give back and teach those things. Because when I think about the meta skill of consulting, especially this ERP consulting, it's really about just how well can you adapt and learn new things, and then how well can you teach those things to, well, I guess ultimately you're trying to teach those to as a consultant, you're teaching them to the end user, or even as a consultancy, you're teaching them to your fellow coworkers.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. It's just an accomplishment to write a book, and in such a giving way too. It's a book, like I said, kind of a labor of love that built up, but just a great way to give back to the community.
Yeah, thanks, Bobby.
I know we're wrapping up on time here, but I'm gonna ask one question before Savannah gets to her. We call them fast 4 or 5 or 3, but just some rapid fire fun questions. And I'm going way back again. When you were at George Mason, was the Hairy Buffalo still a big party? Have you heard of that?
I have never heard of the Hairy Buffalo.
Not that you'll talk about on air. I get it. Okay, cool.
When I went to George Mason, there was a mascot called Gunston, and Gunston was just sort of like Oscar the Grouch without the trash can.
That's hilarious.
And then the marketing people were like, no, we're not doing this. And they just sort of rebranded him to like a green and white, like the Patriots football team. Like, I think they have like a Patriots dude.
Yeah.
And they just sort of like made it him, but with a green and white face. That was a big disappointment in my time at George Mason.
I don't remember if Gunston was there. That's George Mason's like mansion, or his plan, or whatever they call it. His was called Gunston Hall. That was his property in Virginia. So it's interesting they named the mascot after that. That's funny. Cool. Well, man, we really appreciate having you on. Anything else, Savannah?
No. Yeah. Just those silly little questions.
All right. Here they come.
Do you have anything else to ask Josh right now? Cool. So since we kind of talked about you writing a book, I wanted to see what your favorite book was.
Ooh, my favorite book. I think my favorite book right now is A Gentleman in Moscow. It's by Amar Tolls. It's a fiction book about a Russian aristocrat who sort of gets he gets sentenced a punishment. He's sort of locked. What do you call him? I'm doing a terrible job explaining this already. It's a Russian aristocrat who is forced to spend the rest of his life in a single hotel. And so that's like the constraint of the novel. And it's about him sort of finding meaning and purpose, maybe, while he's confined to this hotel. So A Gentleman in Moscow, I just love that book.
Awesome. It's tough because it depends on where, you ask that question. Like, I try to read as much as I can. It definitely gets shoved aside for other activities. But I'll say, like, one of the most surprising books. I love to pick up old books, even if I don't know what they are. I might have heard the title, or just having like a 100-year-old book is interesting to me. Like somebody 100 years ago was reading this, and now I'm reading it. It was just kind of something fun about that. But I read a book called A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, and it's a story set in Brooklyn, back in the early 20th century, about a girl who's in a family that's under the poverty level, and she just kind of her growth through getting a job, and outside of what a normal girl would get a job, and just kind of her truly I've called back to a tree growing in Brooklyn, which is rare, her growing into her job. It was just a surprise. I had no indication of what it would be, but just a really nice read.
Cool. I'd have to say one of my favorite ones is called A Silent Patient. It's kind of like a thriller, and it's this girl whose husband got murdered, and she hadn't spoken since his death. So she kind of got put in this psych ward, and all she communicates through is like her paintings. And everyone thinks that she did it. So there's this psychiatrist who's trying to get her to talk so they can figure it out. And there's just a really big plot twist at the end that I won't give away. But it's one of those that I've only read it once, but I want to go back and read it again just to kind of pick up on all the minute details and things.
Yeah, the nuances.
Yeah. Cool. One of my other questions is, can you speak a different language? And if so, what's your favorite word in that language?
Ooh, great question. I do speak a different language. My wife is from Brazil. And one of probably the reasons we met and connected at the beginning is because I speak Portuguese. I was an exchange student to Brazil, took a gap year between high school and college, and was a Rotary exchange student in Brazil. So that's how I learned Portuguese, as you could say, the first time. But then my wife, over the last 10 years, has made me a lot better in Portuguese. It's the language that we speak around the house, and she speaks to our kids in Portuguese, and I speak to our kids in English.
Cool.
Portuguese, right? I guess if you look at one of those lists of untranslatable words, Portuguese has the word saudade, which is supposed to be like, I guess, let me translate for you, right? It's untranslatable. No, it's supposed to describe like an intense longing for something. So you miss something, you're reminiscing on something, that part of you is missing. And I think, like you say, oh yeah, saudade means longing, it means missing. That sort of works, but there are these complex Brazilian emotions that go along with it, right? So this is being married to my wife. I've experienced the whole range of Brazilian emotions, which has been to my benefit. But I think there's just a deep richness, a deeper richness maybe to some of those emotions. And saudade is a word that's tied to that emotion, and maybe that's what makes it untranslatable.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Like I said, it just has more of a deeper. It's hard to describe. So certain words like that just have, like you said, a really rich layering to them.
Mm-hmm. What about you?
I do not speak. No, I don't speak nothing fluently. No, I attempted to learn Vietnamese. I worked at a company where there was a predominant Vietnamese community, and so for a while, I could still say, I still know phrases like "come on" and "mong moi." There's certain phrases that I'll remember, and if I go back, I can still kind of communicate on a very, very low level. It was an interesting language though, because it's a very simple language. Like, it's actually not too hard to learn. It's like Japanese. It's a little bit more English based, like the words. So the pronunciations are different, but they just, there's so much more simplicity. They would never say, "Hey, Josh, good to see you. I'm gonna go to the store now." They would just say, what it would translate to would be, "Good to see you. leave now. You know, it's like very simple blocks. Like
Why say a mini word when few do trick?
Exactly. Why say so many words when just few get it? And that's just the way the language is built. It's constructed so much differently to get to the point without a lot of the flowery stuff we put in. Like we're pulling out the thesaurus and like adding, you know, like go back to writing. Like I have to cut my writing down. Like I look at it as like, okay, I can cut about 3 sentences of nonsense, you know, thesaurical words out of here, you know, because I just, you know, it's the way I think. But
yeah, that's
but
interesting.
No language. How about you?
Yeah.
What's your favorite word?
I took French in high school, but I'm definitely not fluent. We were just like always stupid in class though, and always be like, hot dog or like whatever. I don't have like a great story behind my word like you do, Josh. But it was funny. We were just talking this weekend. My sister-in-law was born in Japan and lived there a few years. And she's like, the only word that my dad taught me was how to say, you have a big, beautiful booty. And I don't know how to say that, so we'll have to look it up after. But I just thought that was funny to include.
Google Translate.
Yeah. So yeah. And then my last question is just, what's your favorite comfort food?
My favorite comfort food? It goes back to Brazil, I guess. Every meal in Brazil, basically, I mean, not the foundational meal in Brazil is rice, beans, and beef. And really, like if my wife says like, oh, I want to eat food, she doesn't actually mean any food. She means rice, beans, and beef, or like basically rice and beans and some protein. So I just absolutely love Brazilian rice and beans. That's comforting to me.
Is there a key spice like that goes into it that makes it, that gives it that flavor? Because there's so many spices out there, but sometimes there'll be a key spice.
Yeah, it's, you know, salt, onions, and garlic are really what makes Brazilian food. Yeah.
Right on. I grew up Southern, so I still go to a mashed potato and meatloaf. Like if somebody said, "Hey, it's your birthday. What do you want?" I could go exotic, but at the end of the day, my mind is craving my mom's meatloaf and mashed potatoes.
Yeah. I'd say mine is probably ice cream.
It's a good one.
Good. What brand? What flavor?
I'm a mint chocolate chip kind of girl. So, yeah.
Is there a brand out there that you like above others? Like, if like, I'm gonna have to buy the Walmart brand because that's what my budget is. But every quarter, I'm gonna splurge on.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have like a preferred brand. No, can't say that I do. But yeah, those are all the questions that I have for you guys. So Josh, thank you for joining us. I know that we really appreciate you taking your time and sharing your story, and just joining us. It was great.
Yeah, thank you guys. This has really been a lot of fun.
Yep, man. Really appreciate having you on. We'll let you know when this thing airs, and we can do all the good social promoting, and we'll drop some links in our post to point to your book. Get those book sales up and your blog, get those blog views up too. So yeah, really appreciate having you on, man. Hope to see you soon at an event somewhere around somewhere around the country here.
Community.
Yep. Take care, man.
See ya.